All right. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Dr. John Clark, and I am the Associate Professor here at Fresno Pacific University. Thank you for joining us today at our Fresno Pacific Learn at Lunch through the Social Work Department. And because we are a faith-based institution, I'm going to start the meeting off with prayer. So let's pray. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to learn and grow in skills that will help us in reaching out to others. We pray for families and individuals who have been affected by suicide or other tragic events, such as the school shooting this morning in Minnesota. May your Holy Spirit bring comfort and peace. And with your assistance, help us take time to listen and to understand the struggles that others may go through. Bless this time together, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Well, throughout the presentation, you are very welcome to enter any comments or questions you have in the chat area. And we'll be holding these Learn at Lunches quarterly, and the next one will be on November 19th. You'll receive notice when the date is decided, and you don't have to register again. And our presentation today is on suicide preventions, and our guest speaker we'd like to welcome is Elizabeth Casarez, and she currently serves as an instructor in the psychology department at Fresno Pacific. She's worked as a clinician in a variety of settings where her experiences deepened her passion for community outreach. Her former role as the suicide prevention outreach coordinator was especially impactful as it allowed her to focus on public education and facilitate certifications in applied suicide intervention skills trainings. Ms. Casarez holds a Master of Arts in Clinical Psychology with an emphasis in marriage and family therapy from Pepperdine University, and is pursuing a PhD in General Psychology with a focus on industrial organizational psychology. And once again, there will be, you can enter your comments or questions in the chat, and there will be a time at the end for questions and answers, and we will be recording this session. So thank you for coming, and the floor is all yours, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm going to go ahead and actually pull up some of our slides for today. So I hope you all can see them, that there are no issues. I know that that happens with Zoom, of course, but thank you so much for all of you being here. I know suicide prevention is definitely a heavy topic, especially within our surrounding communities. So today we're going to really dive into some of it. Keep in mind, this is more of an introductory session, meaning we're going to really talk about some of the warning signs, risk factors, and then really starting that beginning conversation of really how to have that dialogue around it. So keeping that in mind, you'll see there to the right side that September is actually Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. For those of you that are aware of what that looks like, of course, there are several opportunities for volunteering, especially around the community, which of course I'll provide later as we move into some of the resources, of course, that are available to us. So as we talk about suicide prevention, like I mentioned, it is a heavier topic altogether. So please feel free to step away. If you need a drink of water, if you're eating, whatever it may be, feel free to take that time for yourself as we discuss some of these topics, of course. And also, please don't hesitate to reach out for any type of support. We definitely want to do our best to provide that support as we talk about the heaviness of this topic. With that said, today we'll dive a little bit into this, and once again, more of an introductory to some of these things. So we'll look at a myth or a fact, and then understanding suicide, its impact on our community, especially within the United States. We'll explore a little bit of our attitudes around it, learning some risk factors and warning signs. And then, of course, we're going to look at how to respond and offer support. Once again, more of an introductory for that section, of course. And then lastly, exploring more of a faith-based perspective and also integration and how you might actually provide that support for an individual. With that said, and feel free to drop it in the chat, do you believe it's a myth or a fact for this area? If I ask someone about suicide, it will give them the idea and encourage them to do it. I'll just give couple seconds for that. I know we have a couple. All right, nice. I'm seeing you all, seeing some of the chat here. Whoops. It is actually, whoops, that. Asking about suicide does not cause it. Thank you so much for those of you that went ahead and put it in there in the chat. I really do appreciate it. The whole really session that we'll be talking about today is really understanding how to have that conversation right and provide support to an individual that's having thoughts of suicide. I'm sorry about that. It's not letting me exit off. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to start it off with some of the really leading theories of understanding suicide altogether. You'll see most of the theories here on this one slide. Understanding that there's an intolerable psychological pain from frustrated needs. I went ahead and gave some examples there in the parentheses. So it could be feelings of shame, guilt, rejection, or failure, even feelings of being trapped in that specific situation or that circumstance where they're really maybe unable to see an escape, right, from that circumstance. Feelings of hopelessness and pain, and then even feeling like they're a burden, right, to family and friends or even within their community altogether. I won't go too much into detail of these main theories, of course, but just keeping this in mind, this is what they have found, of course, in research of trying to understand suicide altogether. Some of the escalation that they, of course, have found of suicidal ideation is consistent rumination of these thoughts, even cognitive constriction, meaning it's like tunnel vision, right? When that person's really going through, it could be a combination of different factors that are coming up for them that's causing this intolerable psychological pain, and they're only able to see within that tunnel. So really, when we're opening up, having that conversation, it's really opening up to maybe other options, right? And that could be resources within the community, could be even that connection that they're feeling as they're having the conversation with you. A loss of connectedness and also feeling like they don't have any type of support as well. So why do people consider suicide? I went ahead and included on this slide some of the differences, especially that someone may be experiencing, such as mental illness, substance use, trauma and loss, isolation, chronic pain, any type of medical illness. For those of you that are looking at that slide thinking, well, honestly, you can have 5 out of whatever of those, right? Keeping in mind sometimes, and a lot of the time, it's a combination of all these, right? Where they're completely feeling overwhelmed, where they're trying to get through, but it's hard to even see an escape out of it. So just keeping that in mind as we're thinking about why do people consider suicide, there being a whole combination of factors, which is why it's so important, once again, to have that conversation and provide an open space to even discuss what's happening and really hearing their story. All right, so on this slide, this is taken directly from the CDC of some of the most current data, of course, that they've really looked at. And you can see here that over 49,000 people died by suicide in 2023. That really accounts for 1 death out of every 11 minutes. Many adults do think about suicide or attempt suicide, and then 12.8 million seriously thought about suicide. 3.7 made a plan, and then 1.5 million attempted. So this type of data, especially on our screen right now, can be very heavy when we think about it. And it's honestly why I choose to really do what I do. I became a clinician to really work with clients in that way. And for those of you that remember a little bit of my bio, I spent about 5 years in suicide prevention altogether. And really what led me there was because I was a youth pastor, and I remember I had a young teen come up to me and express what was happening for him. And I remember thinking, I have no idea how to respond to him right now, and I don't know what to say, and I don't know what to do. So there was a lot to that, but that's honestly what led me to volunteering for the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And that's really what led me to where I'm at today, being able to provide that support for individuals. Here you'll see some of the suicide rates, especially across the last couple of decades. Once again, this is taken directly from the CDC. So you'll see between 2000 to 2018 that there was a 37% increase. It decreased between 2018 to 2020, and then it peaked again in 2022. This is, of course, some of the most current data that they found, of course. But keeping in mind some of the reasons as to why there might be underreporting, so just even understanding what that may look like in some of the rates. Here you'll see some of the differences in age groups. I won't spend too long on these slides, of course, but just keeping that in mind as for those of you that are in different agencies, and also understanding what it can look like when you're working with different populations, what they may be presenting with, of course, and how you could better provide support, especially if you're providing different treatment plans for them clinically as well. Here you'll see some of the cultural impacts. So once again, going back to the types of populations that we work with, individuals within different communities, how can we provide better support for them, whether that be through outreach, service plans, understanding what types of resources we could really work towards and actually start to integrate in place. Right. And once again, if you're more interested in looking at the specific numbers, feel free to go onto the CDC website. All of this information is there of the most current information from 2023 and 2022. So feel free to browse through the website as well for this information. All right, so I know it could be a lot to be looking at the rates, of course, understanding how it does impact our community, but there is hope in that understanding that suicide prevention does work. There's a reduction in pain, also reduction in hopelessness, an increase in connectedness as well. Like I mentioned earlier, having that conversation can really increase any type of connection that they've maybe haven't felt, right, in the past year, past couple months, or even years. So keeping that in mind, it also works towards restoration of agency as well. So we want to make sure that we are providing that type of support, having that conversation, even having resources with us to be able to really integrate that into that conversation as well. So they do have more long-term care through that. So we're going to move into a really quick reflection exercise for you all. Thinking of feelings that may come up when we're reading this statement. If someone told me about their suicidal thoughts, I would be thinking. So thinking specifically about feelings, what would come up for you all? I'll just give a couple, maybe a minute for this, couple seconds. I'm looking for feelings that come up for you all if someone were to share this. Yeah, concern, sadness, feeling overwhelmed. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you all so much for entering the chat there. I really do appreciate that. Yeah. Scared for them. Yeah. Sadness. What can I do to help this person? Of course. 988. That's a good one. Yeah. Wanting to help, resources. Yeah, thank you all so much for sharing that. I really do appreciate hearing from some of you, of course. Like you all mentioned, of course, this is heavy, right? And we're also human, understanding that part that's also part of us. There's a person of that helper, meaning the helper that's stepping into that room, having that conversation. So being able to understand not only our attitudes, but our feelings behind it, and how are we going to provide that intervention and have that conversation with them is a huge part of this. So that's why I bring in this reflection exercise, because it's really important that we do reflect on how we feel about this and really what thoughts can come up. So we want to really focus on what we can do as we move forward in these types of conversations. I have one more here. Our church's attitude to suicide could best be described as. So this could be a feeling that comes up, anything like that. We won't spend too much time because once again, I know we have some slides to move through. So keeping this in mind, it's also a different type of community as well. So it could be, of course, more giving, more support as well, more of a sense of belonging within the community. But we'll get into that as we move forward. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm paying attention to the chat as well. Yeah. Taboo. Yeah, of course. Thank you for sharing that. I really do appreciate that. But I want to make sure that we are raising our awareness around different factors, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and move into signs of risk of suicide. This is a quick acronym. For those of you that are looking on the left side, it spells out is path worn. So it's a quick, easy way to really try to memorize some of this information. So we're looking at suicidal ideation, where there also could be substance use, purposelessness, where they feel like they don't have a purpose in their life. Maybe they've had an increase in anxiety, feelings of being trapped, feeling trapped, feelings of hopelessness, even withdrawal from their normal activities. For example, going to hang out with friends every Wednesday night, right? Maybe they've really withdrawn from all of that. Even risky behavior could be another factor. For example, I remember working with someone that would always ride his skateboard in the dark without lights on within the street. So it was more of that risky behavior, right? He knew that cars were driving by really quickly. So understanding how that can impact, of course, even exploring the value of his life, how he viewed that. So that did open up that conversation for us to have. And it was multiple conversations, of course, as I was working with him. And then also means looking for ways to act on suicidal thoughts. We would really be exploring this for risk. So what I did for warning signs, for those of you that maybe have heard of these terms before, these are really indicators that someone may be thinking about suicide. So actions, words, physical symptoms, and then also feelings with that. So I went ahead and gave some examples here for actions. Giving away personal items is a huge one. Like I mentioned, withdrawal, loss of interest in any type of activities that used to bring them pleasure, misuse of any alcohol or drugs, impulsive, reckless behavior, self-harm, and then extreme behavior changes. So I won't go through every single one, any change of sleeping patterns, eating patterns, concerns with their physical health, loss or change in sexual activity, and then also lack of interest in their appearance, where maybe they're not taking care of themselves as much, like showering, for example. Some of the feelings that may be coming up is angry, guilty, lonely, hopeless. And then on the right side, I gave some verbiage, of course, that can be said, of course, by an individual that's experiencing thoughts of suicide. Now I know that what they were going through, right? So that kind of speaks, of course, to the community impact, if, especially if they know someone that died by suicide. I just can't take this anymore. I'm a burden to everyone. And then I can never do anything right. I can't even think straight anymore. So that kind of goes back to some of those, I believe it was the third slide of understanding. It's like tunnel vision, right? Being able to help them see past the tunnel, outside of the tunnel. That's a huge part of having these conversations. So these are 5 universal signs, because I know that was a lot of information in the past 2 slides. So once again, we're looking at really the baseline for that individual, right? What their normal character looks like for them. For example, maybe they really like to sleep, right? And they sleep 10 to 12 hours. That's just how they really like to live. And then all of a sudden you're talking to them and they're saying, "Oh yeah, I like to sleep 10 to 12 hours." And you start to think, "Oh, that's a huge red flag." Well, what if that's their norm, right? So understanding what is part of their normal routine, their character. So we're looking for personality changes for themselves. Say that same person is only sleeping 4 hours, or maybe they're not really sleeping at all, 2 to 3 hours. Maybe they're feeling very agitated or moody. They seem very irritable. They can't calm down. Once again, going back to withdrawal, some of these main universal signs that you can be looking for, especially if you're starting to believe that someone is struggling with this. And then the last 2 here is poor self-care. This kind of goes back to maybe even looking at a person of how they're taking care of their appearance. Are they showering? Are they changing their clothes? So really exploring what that can look like. You might see here abusing alcohol or illicit substances, or even some self-destructive behavior. And then lastly, hopelessness. The person used to be maybe optimistic, right? But now can't find anything to be hopeful about. They may be overwhelmed, suffer from extreme or prolonged grief. So you're really going to spend that time once again hearing their story, understanding what's going on for them to better understand what's happening, right? We want to make sure that we're taking the time with that. So in these next couple slides, it's really about starting the conversation. How can we actually, provide the right support and something that's going to be helpful for them? So before you're starting the conversation with someone you're concerned about, be sure to have suicide crisis resources at hand. A lot of them were maybe mentioned or even thought about already for yourselves. 988 is a great one. For those of you, especially thinking about what resources we might have in our specific counties, mobile crisis response units are definitely a huge bonus, especially here in California. That was rolled out just a couple years ago. That's where a team actually goes out and provides the support for an individual. And it's really, once again, having that conversation with them, ensuring that they're able to stay safe, creating a safety plan with them as well. So keeping that in mind, we do have some resources, a lot of great ones at hand that you could have, of course, as you're approaching this conversation. Mentioning the signs that prompted you to ask about suicide. So we talked a little bit about warning signs already, even looking at risk as well. But those warning signs that really kind of raised maybe a red flag for you, right? Maybe some of that concern that's coming up for you. This makes it clear that you're not asking out of the blue, right? And makes it more difficult for the person maybe to deny that something is bothering them. And also, if they happen to say, no, I'm not thinking about suicide, this is also opening up the conversation for them to talk about what's happening, right? So they may not be thinking about it, but you're still being able to really provide support. So keeping that in mind. Also, asking directly about suicide is something key to remember from having the conversation, right? Are you thinking about suicide? Are you having thoughts about suicide? Are you having thoughts about not wanting to be here anymore, and taking your life, right? So we want to ask directly about it. So it really presents it as a topic, right? And also it lets the person know that you're not going to really fear from having this conversation, that you're actually open to it, right? Talking about suicide does not put the idea in someone's head, and usually they are relieved. So, when asking directly and using the word suicide, it establishes that you and the person at risk are really talking about the same thing and lets the person know that you're willing to talk about it. So, just keeping that in mind, it really opens the doors for more of a safe space, of course, where you could actually sit there and have a real conversation with them. So some of the key really takeaways of this is really to spend time listening. I know I mentioned that earlier. A lot of the time, I know we did that quick reflection exercise at the beginning. Say I'm wrapped up maybe with my own anxiety or my own concern, I might actually start to jump to maybe some of the solutions, right, of where they can go with this. So instead of maybe listening to their story, I'm over here in a solution-based perspective, wanting to find, something to help them. But honestly, we all are able to listen, right? We all do that with our own family and our friends. So keeping that in mind, taking the time to hear their story, what's happening for them, expressing their concern, how much maybe you care about them, right? We want to be able to share that and express that with them. And also reassuring them that there are options, right, to be able to figure out together different resources, and then we'll pull some of those crisis resources in. Listening to the reasons the person has for both living and dying. So being able to sit with them through that. They may describe all these terrible circumstances that they're in, right? Being able to be present with them in that, but also exploring their reasons for living. Sometimes we want to jump to the resources. We might want to jump to maybe providing a warm handoff, of course, which is all great. But we want to make sure that we're exploring also the reasons for living as well. This could serve as a huge, huge turning point in any of these conversations. I remember when I first started out, once again, moving all the way back years ago to me as a volunteer for the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, I kept thinking, oh, for sure, people will identify a person, they're going to identify their family. But keep in mind that may be not the perspective of every single person, right? We want to make sure we're hearing them out. A lot of the time it's family members, of course, friends. Sometimes it's animals. Sometimes it's their cat of who's going to take care of them, their dog. Maybe sometimes it's just wanting to have hope, right? And being able to build off of that and empower them through that. So keeping that in mind, we want to listen for both parts of it. Validate that they are considering both options and underscore that living is an option for them as well, right? So sometimes they say, honestly, it's so hard right now. I can't even do this, and I just don't know anymore. I just don't know, right? So we can also recognize the ambivalence in some of these statements, and also pointing out, it sounds like a part of you really wants to take this option, but also it sounds like there's a fraction of you as well that is also considering that there might not be that might not be the best option, right? So exploring what that can look like. And I know that we don't have too much time today to dive into specific verbiage and language that you can use in these types of conversations. Of course, we can have maybe a later training on specifically on how you would approach that. So we can have more time with it, of course, but keeping in mind as some main takeaways. And also let the person know you care, right? Letting them know you take their situation seriously, you're genuinely concerned about them, and will go a long way in your effort to support them, right? So keeping that in mind, sometimes we really want to express and demonstrate that type of care in these conversations, and especially letting them know, like, this is something very serious, right? And we want to be here to support you through it, being able to even walk them through some different steps, right, of what they might be interested in taking. And down there, you'll see a very helpful resource, suicideispreventable.com.org. Feel free to browse through that website as well. A lot of helpful resources, especially if you're working with someone to get them connected, whether that be a friend, family member, or someone within your agency that you're working with, whatever it may be. All right. So really quickly in the chat, what does resilience mean to you? Feel free to drop that in the chat. Just give about a minute. All right, persevere, growth, and overcoming the difficult. Great, great answers. Yeah, to keep going, right? Hope. Overcome with new strengths, another great one. Growth from a deficit. All right. Get past adversity, your ability to adapt, recover, and keep moving forward. Challenges. It's not about avoiding struggles, right? But about how you respond to them. Great. I love that definition. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to make sure I'm reading everyone's, but I really, really appreciate all of you entering the chat in this way because it's really helpful to understand all of our different definitions, right? So I bring this up because, of course, we want to think about having that conversation and being able to provide these warm handoffs in that way. So resilience, like it was mentioned in the chat, right? The ability to adapt, withstand life challenges. And I listed a couple here, making every day meaningful, right? Living with gratitude, leaning on God for support in a lot of different ways, building social connections, even exercising, right? And learning from our experiences, taking time to care for ourselves as well, and then also remaining hopeful. So a lot of the time when we're maybe talking to someone that's having this type of experience with thoughts of suicide, we could even build off of things that they've done in the past that have helped them through. So that's how we could also use it to really empower them, right? Hey, I know you said that you had a really rough time about 5 years ago. What did you really do to try to get through that? Because I mean, now you're here, right? Being able to move through life. So exploring what it can look like. And of course, it'll be situational for each person, but we want to make sure that we're pulling it back and actually acknowledging the resilience that they do have, right? So just keeping that in mind as we talk about resilience. We think about these definitions, it's really important to think about and pulling a lot of those strengths and even protective factors for a person that you may be working with, or even just someone in the community that you come across. So here I provided some of the protective factors, and I know I mentioned before, this is more of introductory. So this is something, of course, that we would pull on to create a full safety plan. So we won't have time today to go through a full safety plan, but keep this in mind. This is something to really emphasize as you're working with someone, and also providing support to an individual. So you'll see there at the very top, social supports. You can really start to look at it with them. We want to make sure that we're exploring with them, right, hearing them out. So rather than us identifying people in their life, we want to make sure we're taking the time to hear who they find safe in in their life and who they find healthy in their life too, right? So we might assume that, hey, well, why don't you talk to your mom or why don't you talk to your dad? Well, we want to make sure that mom and dad are healthy for them, right? So that's just a quick example. They may not find support in their mom and dad, or they may have a caregiver, a different situation. So exploring that with them and what it looks like. Coping strategies is another major one. I know I mentioned in the last slides how to really build some of that resilience. So physical exercise can definitely be a huge part if it's something that they do already, or if they want to try, right? So keeping that in mind, once again, it's going back to them identifying things that they could actually integrate into their safety plan, right? So instead of us identifying all these different items, we want to make sure we're taking time with them to identify it themselves, because that means that they're more willing to do it, right? They're the ones that are naming it. So keeping that in mind for that aspect. Internal strengths as well, we're going to build off of that, empower them through those strengths, and it could be strengths that you recognized as you're talking to them, right? Hearing their different story, you'll start to hear some of those strengths come out. For example, they may say, you know, I really tried to do my best. I really helped my family. It just feels like too much right now. But I really, in the household, I'm the breadwinner, whatever it may be, right? So building off their strengths and pulling from some of the stories that they've already shared with you. Cultural identity is another huge one, building off of that as well. Spiritual identity, which we'll dive a little bit more into. Access to care, understanding that we do have care around us. A lot of the time, individuals may not be aware of what care looks like, what different resources look like. So keeping that in mind, this is also an opportunity to raise some awareness around that. And then even finding a safe and comfy place for them. So I say comfy in case you're working with someone that's a little bit younger, but keeping in mind, we're going to find a safe place where maybe they don't have access, of course, to means. And then if that is the case, that goes more into safety planning, of course, but we're going to work towards building that safety for that. So they may identify, honestly, I feel safest in my room, watching my favorite show, and feeling my pillow. I really love the smell of this candle. So we're going to explore what that looks like for them, because right there is a good protective factor that they've already identified for themselves. Being able to really tap into the senses in that instance, of course, can be helpful as well, because it brings them back to the present moment, and just being, and of course, raising their own mindfulness practices if they really resonate with some of that as well. All right, so feel free to drop this in the chat. What are some existing strengths that we can think of for the church and also faith in God when it comes to supporting someone who's having actual thoughts of suicide? So I'll just give it about a minute for this one. Yeah, some existing strengths that you can see. Community, support system, mentors, yeah, youth groups, right? Peer support, yeah, weekly gatherings, sense of belonging. That's a great one, Stacy. Yeah, guidance. Yeah, spiritual guidance. Yeah, wonderful answers. Thank you all so much for putting these in the chat. Community resource access. So what we could really see there from the chat, especially for all of you that really explore what it can look like, right? Faith-based counseling, another good one. It really provides a sense of belonging, right? A natural part of community within the church, with the family of the church. So keeping that in mind, we can really tap into that, especially if we start to see someone's spiritual identity when they actually might share that, of course, in the conversation, or you might explore that with them. So keeping that in mind, being able to tap into a lot of these supports that are existing already. That doesn't mean that we don't want to expand their community of support, right? We want to make sure that they are wrapped around with different services that could be of help. For example, you might create a safety plan with someone in the future where you talk about going to Bible study on Wednesday night and going to church on Sunday, and on Friday they have therapy. And then on Thursday they have a peer support group. On Monday they might have a different support group. or they might engage in some just extracurricular activities within the community, right? So we can definitely build off of this, create service plans, create treatment plans as well, right? And increase some of that support all around us. And this is a huge part of raising our awareness of the different resources at hand that could be of support. We want to make sure that one, we're human, right? We're social beings. We all need that type of support, but understanding that one person cannot provide all the support for another, that we really do need a community. So I mentioned a little bit earlier with spiritual identity. This is something that you can also explore, of course. The person's sense of identity and worth in relation to God, of course, and his or her place in the universe. This could really bring about the conversation about one's divine worth and potential. So keeping that in mind, this could also bring about spiritual coping and religious coping. They may tell you, of course, that, hey, I go to church every Sunday. I stopped going 2 months ago. It was really hard for me and it was hard to get out of bed, right? So we're going to explore what that may look like. And once again, going back to a lot of what you all said in the chat, of course, tapping into the resources that are there already, building on that, and exploring what it is, really what their life looks like, of course. So I won't spend too much time because I know that it's already about to be 12:40. So I wanted to also leave these resources here for you as well. I mentioned mobile crisis programs, definitely a great one. So it's usually a team, a mental health clinician, a SUD counselor, or a mental health clinician and a peer support person where maybe they have lived experience as well. So being able to send a team out there to provide that type of support. If you're interested in what it may look like within your county, feel free to contact your access line, or you could even Google your specific county and look for the crisis program, the mobile crisis program number. There's also, of course, 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. So I was there for about 5 years because I absolutely loved providing this type of support. Keep in mind, you do not actually have to have thoughts of suicide to call the line, right? If you're experiencing emotional distress, or if you have questions on maybe how to actually talk to someone about what's going on, what resources are out there, they're also a great resource for that. The county access lines, like I mentioned, every single county has a different number. You could also use the crisis text line as well. That may be a little bit more useful, especially for someone that's an adolescent. There's also, of course, local counseling centers nearby, so you might even provide that resource. So I mentioned already suicideispreventable.org, and then there's the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. That could be a great resource if you're interested in maybe entering maybe a local chapter, volunteering, and actually providing support in that way. There's several different events where you can join maybe a walk, walking for suicide prevention as well. So feel free to browse through those websites. It could be very helpful, especially if you want to start working in more of this area. So just keeping that in mind. I also want it for any Fresno Pacific University students to let you know, because sometimes students may not be aware that you do have 12 free sessions. If you're needing any type of support, feel free to tap into this, right? It's a free resource that you have every single year. So anyone from DC, graduate or undergraduate, can tap into this type of resource. It could be really helpful, especially as you move through your college career. I do want to mention too, I know we didn't have too much time today to dive more into what the conversations look like. I do want to leave a note here if you're interested in learning more and gaining a certification. Feel free to contact me regarding the training. This is actually a 2-day training, but you become assist certified with that. So you actually do practice not only recognizing the warning signs, but creating a full safety plan. And actually engaging in these conversations with verbiage. So it's a lot of practice with that. So just keeping that in mind if you are interested. Once again, that is a workshop that will build your skill set in this area, because as you have started to see, especially with the community impact all around us, that this can come up in really any area that we work in, but with friends and family as well, right? We want to be better prepared when it comes to this. So once again, that is a 2-day training for this workshop. All right, so I do want to leave a note here before we close for the day, the importance of debriefing, right? So if you find yourself having this conversation with someone, please tap into your own resources. You could even reach out to a professor. You can reach out to someone, a supervisor within your agency. Whatever it may be, please reach out for that support because it's important to process your own feelings around it, right? Your reactions, even stress that maybe have occurred for you, right? We want to make sure we're checking in on the person of the helper, right? We're all in this helping profession. Please keep in mind that we have to take care of that person as well. Reflection of the conversation can be helpful, reinforcing some of the protective factors for the helper, for yourself. And then providing the opportunity for collaboration and access to resources, right? So say you do reach out and you find out about another resource in your area, it could really raise your awareness where you can continue to do that work and grow from it as well. So once again, some of your own protective factors, we want to keep building on that. I won't spend too much time on all of this, but building on what it looks like for you, especially as you are all in this profession. It can be very taxing, emotional, draining as well. We want to make sure we're taking care of ourselves before we're having these conversations too, and providing the right resources as well. But I know it's already, let's see, it's already 12:41. So thank you for your time and just the wonderful work that I honestly know that you're already pouring into our communities. I know that it was very short and brief today, but feel free to reach out if you are interested, of course, in a longer training to really hold these conversations and to be better prepared with that as well. But thank you so much for all that you do. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your great presentation, Elizabeth. And we want to open it up for questions. So would you like to just kind of read the chat, or you want me to try and help you?
I'm
I know
trying to.
someone wanted to know how expensive it was.
Okay, it honestly depends on the list of, well, the number of people that are interested in it, and then kind of who we can bring in, of course. So it just depends. So once we have a full list, we can kind of go from there, but we would, of course, try to not make it too expensive.
And somebody's wanting the PowerPoint. So would you like them to reach out to you, or do you want to send it to me?
You can probably reach out to me.
Okay.
Actually, go ahead and.
You want to put your email in the chat?
There's my email for it. So I know that it could be very, very valuable, of course, to really read through this information. So feel free to share any of this information. I'll probably still share it with Kim as well. So just keeping that in mind, if you are interested in the workshop, we can definitely try to work something out whether it be on a Friday and Saturday, because it really can prepare you to really sit with this information and practice these skills.
Yeah, I put our link to our Learn at Lunch website in the chat. And if you're wanting to have a copy of this video, if you need it immediately, let me know. But eventually it gets on our website, and you can go back and watch any of our Learn at Lunches that we've had in the past if you follow that link, as well as potentially present at the Learn at Lunch. If that's something you or someone you know would like to do, there's a place for you to fill out a form on our website as well. Okay, so Tomas has his hand raised. Let's see if I can.
Sorry, I know I'm missing some comments. I'm trying to keep up, but it keeps bouncing off.
Are you reading from Andrew Marquez? He works at ICU as a medical social worker. He's wondering if you've had any other resources that would be beneficial for their teens and young adults. He's trying to build and create better resource closet for patients.
Oh, that is a good one. I'm trying to think of a specific one for adolescents. I know 988 is always a good one to remind them that also it's confidential. I think that sometimes gets lost, that they think their information is going to be out there. Oh, it says I'm muted. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure you could hear me. So 988 is always a good one just because they're open 24 hours. It's confidential. Your information will not be released in that way. I appreciate Samantha sharing that Kingsview mobile crisis. That's, of course, right here in this area. Also, if you need support there in person, that could be very helpful. Oh, great. I'm glad that yeah, Turning Point's another great one. Yeah. Yeah, mental health first aid as well. It's another great training to raise awareness about different diagnoses, different mental illness. Yeah, and if you're, because I'm sorry, I scrolled up. If you're interested in specific training with Assist, feel free to email me. I put it in the chat earlier, so I hope that you could all still see it. So then if you would really be interested in that, we can organize something and then look at specific dates, and then I'll send that out and put you on the list to get that certification as well, because it could really increase your skill set around this. I think I have everyone's questions. Feel free to let me know if I missed any.
The Center for Grief and Healing was mentioned. So Luna. So great resources. Thank you all for sharing. Any last questions before we end the Learn at Lunch?
Yeah, wonderful questions. And I appreciate all of your participation today. I know it was pretty brief, but feel free to reach out if you would like any other support or curious about resources or assist, anything like that. I'm here for any of that. So yeah, it was great being with you all today.
All right. Well, thank you very much for attending. We look forward to seeing you November 19th. We'll be giving information on who our next speaker is very shortly, and you don't need to re-register. You'll receive information as it comes. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.